Hey, um, so I'm going to be doing a video here, for anyone that is interested. Um, this is going to be a, kind of an informative video, but also a video in which I'm going to be talking about my story and about what it is that I have, gone through, these entire, last 5 months, but also what I've dealt with in the last 5 or 6 years of my life, and hopefully any of this information will become useful to you. What I'm going to do first kind of is just explain my story and what has happened to me, anyone that is aware or not aware, from kind of point A to point Z. And then I will kind of go through and talk about why I feel this is an important video that I wanted to make. Because I felt, there could be a lot of people out there that might need the help, that might want to know, what to do or not to do in this situation that I'll talk about in this video. And that it might be something that someone might be able to relate to, or kind of, something that they would find useful. Disclaimer, this is going to be quite a lengthy video. I will try to keep it as short as I can with points, but no details will be missed, as everything in this video is important. If you do happen to manage to get to the end, I appreciate you. Watch it in sections, watch a part of it if you can't always, that's what stop and start is for on YouTube, so you don't have to feel like you have to sit through like a whole lecture and a whole talk. But if you do happen to watch this whole video and get to the end, I appreciate you immensely for this. There's not going to be any opinion, I will disclaim, injected, as there might be things that may seem kind of like opinion, but I try to leave that out of it, and I just try to go based on the facts of what has happened and what I recognize has happened. And so hopefully that'll be easy for you to follow along with as I kind of go through this story of mine and explain everything. What we'll be talking about today in this video is a concept that isn't just based off of what I dealt with in life, but what a million other people have or are currently dealing with right now. They're struggling, and they don't know what to do, and so hopefully this will help those individuals have a sense of hope that they can get better. We're talking about health, which I believe is the number one most important thing in every human's life. I think that the order in which things should go, and this is not much as an opinion, but that your health should be number one, that your family, and then you could put there your partner, spouse, whoever, under that. Any career or any type of, thing that you enjoy doing, whether in my case like playing drums, whether it's piano, whatever that thing is that you like or enjoy. It doesn't have to necessarily be your job if you're just working some 9-to-5 job, but whatever that passion or that thing is that you like. And then, of course, your hobbies and everything else would go below that. But your health, if you don't have your health, you're not able to help your family. You're not able to be there for your partner. You're not able to do the thing. And if you're not able to do that, it just trickles down that you're not going to be capable of doing the thing that you love. And, of course, you're not going to be able to enjoy all the other list of hobbies and things you have. But health and wellness, which includes what you eat, what you do in the kitchen, and what you do at the gym. And I will talk about both aspects in this video of both the gym and also the kitchen, which I call the first gym, really, and the primary gym in this case, because I feel that the gym is in the kitchen. And the actual gym is important, but the gym in the kitchen is what we're going to talk about. But first section of this video, I'm going to go through and tell my story as to why I'm even making this video. Well, the reason is, some of you may know, I had dealt with severe health issues for about a whole year. But I was probably dealing with health issues way longer than that for a majority of my life. And I've compiled a list, since I've done some new things that I'll talk about in a minute, uh, after I tell this kind of story of mine, um, that I've made a list that I will read at one point towards the end of all of the things that have changed in my body. Things that were always a certain way for years. So this doesn't just have to do with what has happened in the last year, but it is a culmination of all of the things I did, and a lot of it wasn't necessarily what I did wrong. Part of it has to do with societal, learnings and things that you learn growing up that you might think are a certain thing, but really they're not, or what you thought was true is not true, and what you thought you believed is not what you believed, and that you get into that territory of, stuff happening that you realized, wait, that's not what I was taught, that's not what I've been told, that's not what I learned. And you always, as you grow older, come accustomed to being your own person, being your own individual, and expanding your mind. You expand your taste in music, you expand the likes that you like, you expand the things that you enjoy, you learn from different people, from different species, you learn different things about the world, and that's why they say when you grow older and you get wise, because you've experienced a lot more and you've learned a lot more, but hopefully you've learned a lot of things and lessons that you thought were true, but they weren't, and then you realized, hey, this isn't what this is you know not what it's supposed to be. So the thing with that is this story starts in 2020, even though it goes beyond that. All right, I was born 3 pounds. Okay, probably had every shot known to mankind and every lead attached to my body, and yes, there were medications I was allergic to as I was born that actually caused me a reaction. Nevertol, and penicillin, they say sometimes. But I definitely got a reaction to that. That was bad. I puffed up like a balloon. But I was born very small, had a lot of complications and issues, and had issues with hearing and eyes and nose and legs and not walking as soon as some babies. And hey, look, I'm here. Basically, I could spend an hour talking about my childhood, but I'm here to say that despite all of that, and then despite, going on a standard diet, and yes, I have the privilege of being on a farm for 15 years, so we did know about eating a lot of healthier foods, having our fresh grown vegetables, having chickens that we would get eggs from all the time, and being able to eat, all the good quality bacons and scrapples and meats and things from Stafford Angus Farm in Northeast, which I found out recently, the restaurant I actually go to, Homegrown in Newark, they actually serve a Stafford Angus selection of meats there, including a Stafford Angus burger patty, which is one of the juiciest. It is so good. So good. But, just that, and just like in general, that I did grow up, just as standard as anyone else, at least when with my dad. Like, yes, we had the privilege of having my Italian grandmother who always cooked the freshest foods and homemade pastas all the time, every Sunday, and made pastina, anytime after school when I would go, and, I would eat that with the chicken broth and the, Parmesan cheese that was fresh grated, and it would just be out of this world. And as I got older, she started to add spinach in it to make it more adult-like, as if you would have thought it would have been the other way around, that, that spinach would have been added as a kid to make me want to eat more spinach like Popeye. But I just, went through the standard diet and standard things that everyone else did. About till 2020, I kind of started to realize things about, my diet and stuff that could be better. And that, I need to get away with a lot of processed things. And I still was actually eating some processed things, such as like eating, processed chicken nuggets, rice and broccoli. Like that would be a meal, like 1 or 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week. And they would be extra crispy, or I would get the ones that were like the frickin' potato nuggets, like they have at Burger King, but like supposedly better. Even though Tyson nuggets are like, it's Tyson. It's antibiotic chicken. It's, you know, made with preservatives and this and that. It's not good stuff. But I would eat it, like, whatever, but was at least still getting conscious. And trust me, that kind of was because I was just home and, like, what was I going to be able to do, like, food-wise, like, during the pandemic, there really wasn't much I was going to be able to do at that time, and even into the next year. But this story all starts, though, in January of 2020. There was a night I was with my mom, and I remember it like yesterday. She made something called Trailer Park Potluck. You know what that is? You're from Maryland or below, you'll know that it's like a pot roast. You put some kielbasa sausage, cabbage, whole potatoes, pieces of chicken. You put carrots in there, some onion, garlic, whatever you want, basically. You just do it in a big pot, and you got the beef and chicken broth going in there, and you got salt and pepper to taste, or whatever other kind of seasonings are in there. Some cream maybe to thicken it up if you want. I mean, it's great. And usually it would be served with like cornbread on the side. And you would just pick out the stuff. Like I wouldn't eat the cabbage usually or anything, but I would definitely eat the sausage, the meat, the potatoes, which would be fork tender all the time. And she came over one night where it was just both of us, and we had dinner. And she wanted to bring that over. It was like a cold January night, and I thought that'd be perfect to have as a nice, just hearty soup. And it was my favorite thing. I mean, she wouldn't make it often, but whenever she did, it was one of my favorite recipes of hers. It was great. And so what happened was, I remember just having a nice time and chatting with her and having a good meal, and then, about an hour or so later, I ended up getting sick. At least I started to feel like, I was getting sick. And, well, I woke up, I think sometime in the morning that morning, and I felt like I was in Hell's Kitchen. I didn't really go necessarily all the way downstairs and grab a thermometer to check my temperature, but I probably was able to figure on being very sick at that moment and just like not being able to sleep. It was bad. It was terrible. I don't know what came over me. I ended up waking up multiple times in the night. One time I was hot. The next time I was super cold. Then I was like in the middle, like it was fall. And then I was like, wow, I'm a little bit in the middle of like being a little too cold now, but like I still need the fan. So I went from the fan on to the fan off. And then I had like one time where I had no covers on, and then a time where I wanted all the covers on and the fan off. Like I went through all 4 seasons. And it was bad. It was really bad, whatever happened. It was just not fun. And I just was like, this is just not happening right now. Like, what is happening to me? Why am I feeling so sick? So I finally wake up in the morning, groggy as hell, just like so sick, and just felt like utter shit. And I remember going downstairs, and it was a Friday, and I remember making a bowl of oatmeal, because I thought that'd be something warm and hearty to eat. Take the Quaker, just make that, and, take some of the Advil, because I, at the time, really needed to be able to take medicine with, food or something, because since, like, my car accident back in 2008, when I got hit by a car in front of my house, it's one of the first times I really transitioned at that age to taking pills, and I just always needed it to be inside of some form of food or oatmeal or something, because I just didn't feel like I'd be able to swallow a pill of a certain size with just water, like I do today. And there's other factors that go into that, like, what I'm taking today is something that just barely has any taste at all. Whereas, a lot of those medicines I would have to take, and pharmaceuticals and other medicines, they all tasted nasty. Because it was made with chemicals and this and that and everything else. So, of course, that's probably why, and also because they were like twice the size as any normal, like, vitamin or something I'm taking now that probably doesn't taste that bad, is why that I knew in that example that I am now able to take a pill and just swallow it with some water. Put some water in there, put the pill in there, and take some water, and then swallow it. Bam. And I've been doing it for the last 2 weeks now, taking magnesium glycinate is what I take, and it's never been a problem. But yeah, anyway, at the time, that's what I needed to do. So again, I went and I decided that I'm gonna go and take, basically, this Advil that I had, and then see if it reduces my fever, and it did actually kind of help a little bit. And I felt like that I was at least getting a little bit better as the morning went on. But then by the afternoon, it came back, and it came back with a vengeance. I felt like I was in Hell's Kitchen ×2, because now it felt even hotter, and the fever was just up there, and it was staying there, and it just didn't want to go away. It was almost for about 2.5 to 3 days that lasted. Now, that Saturday of that weekend, I was actually supposed to go with my dad to a show in Baltimore to see Jeff Dunham, who is a comedian I really love and would love to have seen. I love all the characters. I love his act. It was actually a gift for the semester that I ended up getting the Dean's List again for 2 other classes I took that were really difficult. And so we ended up getting tickets to go in Baltimore, and of course it never happened because I was sick as a dog and could not go. And hopefully we'll go maybe some other time he does another tour and come around. I would love to do that. I mean, I've been to plenty of concerts and I've seen plenty of bands, but I've never seen a comedian live. But if I had to see one live, he would be very high on the list, and it would be funny. So I thought this would be awesome. But I just, was sick, so I just had to spend that night just relaxing inside, watching movies, just hanging out, and just had a fan on to try to keep me cool, and that's all I could do. It wasn't until about the next day, my mom, obviously a nurse, decides you need to go get checked out in medical aid unit. So I go to get checked out at the medical aid, and when I do, what happens? They tell me that they weren't sure what it was, but that they wanted to give me Mucinex DM. Said, take this medicine, it's going to help you feel a lot better, and it's going to get rid of the sickness that you have. That could be some sort of, maybe not flu, but some sort of really bad, nasty cold you got that got a hold of you. And what happened was that my mom and I were kind of sitting there as the nurse that saw us walked away to write the script for us for the pharmacy. We kind of noticed that I can't take Mucinex products because I've always taken what was known as Mucus ER, which was the over-the-counter Walgreens or CVS generic, because it was apparently not as strong on my system and wouldn't cause me as many issues in my gut that would make me get sick. Now, the reason I know that, and that Mucinex is not a product I generally can handle, is because about 5 or 6 years prior to this happening, maybe 7 years prior, there was an incident where I was sick once, and my dad had to take care of me, and of course he's not a nurse, and he's not a doctor, and he's the kind of dad that's like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do? My mom obviously wasn't able to be there, and she mentioned exactly what it was needed for my dad to get. But the mistake is that when you mention to someone like him who's not a doctor or is not a nurse or whatever, even to any person really, if you write down exactly on that paper what medicine he needs to get or what I need to help him find at whichever store we have to go to grab this medicine, he's going to get exactly what you write on there, or at least whatever's closest to it. Well, of course, she wrote Mucinex, not drowsy, because I can't take drowsy for certain reasons. And that's, kind of like the Mucus ER, which was a non-drowsy extended release medication. Well, we ended up going to Walmart, and of course, we're not at a CVS or Walgreens, because I actually didn't know at the time of this part of the story that I was actually taking over the counter, whatever it was. And so, we ended up buying this medication that was called Mucinex Fastmax, meaning it worked actively fast. And I remember taking it along with my normal dose of antibiotic at the time, which was Augmentin or whatever it was. And when that happened, I remember I had some oatmeal or something to take with the medicine, and then I remember waking up from a nap. And my dad and I were watching a movie on TV, just relaxing, and I was gonna get ready to have some soup for lunch. Had some lunch, and then all of a sudden, this thing hit me out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere. I rushed to the bathroom. I felt like that I was gonna shit my brains out and throw up. I felt like I was gonna pass out. I was hyperventilating. My heartbeat was rushing fast. My eyes were literally like flashing, and I was like not able to see, and I was getting blurry and dizzy, and I was screaming and crying. I was like, I thought I was dying. I went on the phone, called my mom, and said, Mom, like, something's happening to me, and I don't know what's going on, I can't see, and I'm breathing real heavy, all this stuff. Afterwards, after like 5 minutes, this reaction I had completely went away. Bam, gone. Never happened again. And I calmed down, and I felt like I could see again and breathe again, and my heart rate got back to normal, and everything was regulated, and I was fine, and then I was fine the rest of the day. Mom was like, what'd you take? Well, we got this Mucinex. Oh, well, you're supposed to take Mucus. And here goes my dad saying, yeah, but you wrote Mucinex on it, not Mucus. Oh, well, yeah, I call it Mucinex. It doesn't matter what. So, of course, little mistake there. So, in my mind, obviously, fast forward back to the medical aid, where the lady was going to give me, Mucinex. I'm thinking, well, I know what happened the last time I took a Mucinex product. I literally thought I was dying. So is this really the medication I'm supposed to take? I don't know. But we thought it was weird based on the kind of cough I had. Why would I want to take something that suppresses the cough if I already have a suppressed cough? I don't know. But we said, you know what? We're seeing the nurse. It's what she suggested. They gotta obviously know what they're doing, right? At least I thought. So I get home, and on the way home, I said, Mom, I'd like, maybe to have something, to have for dinner. And I'm thinking, Tony's, my favorite place right up the street, has this amazing Italian wedding soup they make that is just to die for. I'd love to have some, and then I could take my medicine with that, soup or whatever, and then that would be my dinner. Because that night was actually the night of the Royal Rumble that year, in 2020. I was supposed to have a party and have my stepbrother over. I was supposed to have my other friend Ryan come over and a few other friends. But of course, my stepbrother also had a minor cold. I was sick with, obviously, whatever this disastrous disease was that was plaguing me for the last 3 days. And it was just really, really sickening, and I just didn't know what to do. So I said, I'll just eat the soup, and then I'll kind of relax, and I'll get to watch my pay-per-view. And at the time, of course, because the Wrestling Network obviously didn't exist at the time, where you could share your service anymore, I had to take my phone that I have here, something similar to this, but Samsung phone, and I had to take this tripod thing or something like this and stand it up on a bunch of boxes on a TV tray and have it angled towards the TV, so that my stepbrother could watch, and so that we could be on the phone together and call while he's watching. Because of that, being kind of the only way for most of that pandemic that he was going to be able to watch any pay-per-views before coming over. Again, once it was safe to do so, because he worked at a hospital, so he obviously had to, stay home since he worked at Christiana, and, even though he's not directly near any patients and he works at the front now, still had to be careful. So that was our solution. But we ended up watching it, and I got about an hour through until I started to feel like I was going to throw up for some reason. And so, well, I did. Except I didn't make it all to the bathroom. Half of it ended up on our old carpet. Mess everywhere. It was hard as hell to get cleaned out. My dad, of course, had to do it and clean it up because I just didn't have the energy. Tells my mom about it, that's what happened, and then I went and, went upstairs to shower after I already was clean, had to get new clothes on, and frickin' change after that in the middle of the pay-per-view. But I was quick enough to get a quick one that, like, I didn't miss too much except for part of a match or something. But it was just crazy that I had to fucking go through that and frickin', have to do that. But I came back down, Then, of course, the diarrhea came as well. And I had poop ending up on the floor. I ended up knocking over the tower with my phone on it. My stepbrother did actually see me naked at one point, which was hilarious to say. But between that and then also, again, having to throw up a second time, I was ready to be done. I knocked over all the boxes. I got poop and throw up on the carpet. I feel like shit. I still feel like I'm in Hell's Kitchen. Maybe not as much as I was the day before, but still. And I don't know if it's because of the sickness I have or something else. Well, we eventually figured out that it was the medication, that I had a reaction to it, and that I confirmed I definitely cannot take any Mucinex products. So my mom decides the next day, I'm just going to go to the Walgreens and pick up the Mucus CR over-the-counter brand, and I'm going to give you that. And when I give you that, it'll be better on your digestive system, won't cause you any problems, and it'll hopefully help get the mucus out of your sinuses and start to clear them out so you can start to feel better. So she got it for me, went the next morning, took the medicine, and I felt fine. I felt great. There was no problems. But then, after that, and after a few days, I started to feel a little better. The worst part was yet to come, and I thought that was the worst. The part that was the worst was that then I had this just lingering dry cough that just didn't go away. And it was totally dry, and it didn't go away, and it was terrible. It was like you would cough, but it was just dry, And the problem was that, I also couldn't taste anything at this point. All the food I ate tasted like as if you took a metal spoon in your, kitchen, put it under the open flame on your stove, and you ate it. And ate hot liquid metal. Because it tasted so metallic. It didn't matter if it was plain bread, if it was white rice, if it was oatmeal, it didn't matter. It was disgusting. The only thing that was hopefully kind of strong enough to get through the metallicness in my mouth and get through to my taste bud sensors so that I could really taste my food was chicken soup. That the chicken broth, even alone, was just so strong somehow that I was able to taste it. There was even a joke that we had in my family at the time that I was someone who never ate ice cream or sweets almost my entire life. There was only a time where I did have cake shoved in my face on my 11th birthday because I never wanted to eat cake or sweets. And my two cousins kind of worked together to put cake in my face, and I screamed and cried. I got a PlayStation 2 and got a set of golf clubs, my first ever set of golf clubs. So I was a little happy afterwards, and it made up for it. But she my one cousin felt really bad. It was my other cousin that kind of was egging her on and whatever. But other than that, and other than that, I did used to eat Rice Krispie treats and vanilla wafers when I was in, pre-K and like other things that were like not very extreme in the sweet category. Like I had Frosted Flakes before. I liked corn pops. They had a little bit of sugar. Hell, I realized I was like, oh, I don't like sweets, but yet I was drinking all kinds of Coke. That's sugar. I was eating pancakes, waffles, all kinds of stuff like that that were my favorite thing. That's all. That's all sugar. I was eating pasta. That's all sugar. I was eating white rice all the time. My favorite. That was all sugar. I was eating grains like oats. That was sugar. So even though all these different things that eventually in your body turned straight into sugar, I wasn't really necessarily eating direct pure sugar or things that actually legit tasted, because those other things didn't exactly taste like sugar. They tasted more savory. They still turned into sugar when consumed in your body, but that, it wasn't overly sweet, so was I avoiding, the cakes, the cookies, and ice creams, which was worse? Yes, I was. And so obviously the joke was that, I bet you this would have been the only time, because of how sick I was and how bad my taste buds were, that I could have had ice cream and I wouldn't have been able to tell you if I had ice cream or not. I wouldn't have been able to even tell. And my dad would have bet me, oh, I'm going to get you the drum set of your dreams and buy whatever you want if you try a piece of this ice cream. And I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that right now. Because I just know, at least in my mind, that I will never, ever put any of that near my face. No ice cream, no chocolate. It doesn't matter if I'm 90 years old on my deathbed. People would always think, oh, you're going to finally realize how great sweets are and how... And today, when I get to kind of the end of this video, you'll realize that I definitely am never going to do that ever in my life. Even in an alternate universe, as infinite amount of them that there are that I'm in, that's never going to happen. Well, anyway, my sister, kind of came through the clutch at the time when she was still a little mentally well and better. Was able to give me some advice and said take some vapor rub on your chest, because that'll help with your chest and your cough, and it kind of relieved the symptoms temporarily for a few hours, so that I could breathe and felt like, wow, like I can actually breathe a little bit despite having this cough that just didn't go away. And that was it. Like, there was no fever, there was no runny nose, there was nothing else. It was just for 2 weeks. That's all it was. And it dragged on for so long, and after getting through my dose of antibiotic and thinking, do I need more antibiotic or not? My mom said I should go to my primary doctor. So I go to my primary doctor, Dr. Federline, who was my newer primary when my original primary, Dr. Breslow, left the practice, and my second primary after that, Akin Kumi, never actually kept me as a patient, because every time I tried to schedule with him, he was never available. Well, when am I supposed to schedule an appointment on his schedule? I'm probably not sick at the time. So I need to schedule it when I'm sick, and if he's not available, that's not my fault, but that's whatever. But Dr. Federline, I could always get in at least close enough to the time that I was sick, and he would usually have an opening and see me, and he was the best doctor. I tell you, as good as Dr. Breslow, if not even better. Amazing. And always cared about me, always made the right choices, always made sure I was healthy, never pushed medicines on me, only ever needed me to take things when I absolutely needed them, always wanted to make sure that I was doing okay by this or that. He was very smart, and I hope wherever he is today that he's doing a good job still, because he was the best doctor. Well, what happened was, my dad ended up taking me, since my mom was busy, and he wanted to go because he wanted to make sure that whatever this weird sickness was that I had was okay, because if this was something very weird or very rare, other people in my family would obviously want to be aware of the chances of them getting it and what could happen. Now, of course, my dad, at that age of, 71, whatever, he had a shot when he was a child. Actually, it was before he was even born. He was in womb. My grandmother and grandfather were moving over from Italy in 1949 to be stationed in Brooklyn, while my grandfather basically was, going to be in the army. That's when World War II was going on, and he was fighting in the army, and then my grandfather on my other side was actually on the same side, but was, a Air Force pilot, and fighter pilot, and stuff like that. So, anyway, my grandmother had to get a shot when moving over from Italy. And I guess that protected him because he has gone until now and has barely gotten sick. Just barely gotten sick at all. No issues with being sick. And I just feel like he has a fountain youth because I just feel like he could do no wrong and just not get sick without a problem. So when he wanted to ask the doctor, since he was mostly around me this whole time, he wanted to just be curious and just know, like, am I going to get this? And the doctor looked at him and said, by next Tuesday, you're next. I guarantee you. If you're not careful, you're next. He also wasn't able to tell me what it was either. Now, whether he knew, which we all know, it was COVID, obviously now, but I don't know, maybe he didn't know. But if I was one of the first few people to have, COVID 2 months before anybody really knew what it was, then yeah, I did. I had it before anyone. And I don't know where I would have gotten it from, because all I remember is that all of my band members at the time, right, we had a show that was actually scheduled to be played in Virginia that January. That was actually going to be at like a house show or some type of show that was in Virginia. They all had the flu. Like, really bad, somehow, all of them. And they saw me the week just like before I ended up getting sick initially. And it was crazy to think how, at the time, a part of it was like, come on, man, like, we gotta play this show. Like, I was like, look, I can't freaking make this, like, I can't make this show happen. Okay? Like, I can't make this show happen. Because if I make this show happen, like, I don't want to get anyone else sick or do anything. But they also were very sick. They had the flu. I'm like, how are you guys going to try to play a show and you got the flu going on? That's also highly contagious. It was just bad, but we were all going to try to play. And mind you, obviously, there was a time that I went to play a show when I did have COVID again, potentially had COVID again, but I didn't really know it just yet at the time, and it wasn't confirmed until about the day after. So I didn't know exactly at that moment that I did, in fact, have that or not, and that it was 100% accurate. But then, of course, there were some people that ended up possibly getting sick from that. But I ended up playing a show. My guitar player at the time, Brandon, had part of his finger almost chopped off. Our bass player, Andy, had strings that, like, have seen better days and were the funk of 30,000 years. And at one part, our vocalist, actually, Zach, messed up one part of one of our singles, but at the most perfect timing, actually, because he was able to just hype the crowd up, and that would be the perfect spot live to not do vocals there, just to stop and just say, yo, what the fuck is up, or, whatever. So it all worked out. And however we had the best set of that night at that show, I will never know. But the point is that just to think that at a moment like that, where then, oh, you're sick, and what are you doing? Playing a show when you're sick, but yet, obviously, when we were all sick before, well, I can obtain this to the fact that it wasn't until people knew what COVID was. They didn't feel that going somewhere, if you're, like, after COVID, If you had something that was like that, they were like, nah, don't come, don't, whatever. But if you just had, like, whatever, oh, it's okay, you know, you're fine, you're probably not that, whatever. Like, you can still play. That's how COVID changed people's minds. It literally controlled people to a point of where they just were so much about whatever that if you got the sniffle, you got, no, don't even come around. But if I had that before, oh, you can still play the show, come on. There's people that have played with broken legs that have played. And it's crazy, and it had nothing to do exactly with my band members per se, and a perspective of stuff that was wrong. It was just what was the state of the world that caused everyone to kind of feel that way. Not me so much, because I felt like, as much as I've been sick my entire life, almost 3 or 4 times within a year, having to take breathing machine meds and antibiotics and everything else, that I just felt like, personally, that, you know, I was always going to say that, you know, unless, you know, with something like that, maybe I'd be able to play through it. I mean, I played through a show with almost a near, you know, broken and damaged foot in my first band. You know, I've probably played with hurt wrists and hurt arms and, you know, other things that were wrong with me, and probably have sometimes been sick. There was one time I actually had the flu, and it was actually a birthday show for my friend Jake, who was having his 25th birthday celebration. And we ended up doing it in half times, had a bunch of bands, and then my band played at the end. And when we did, you know, I somehow remember not only having the flu and being sick, but also my leg actually got jacked up where it got jammed, or, like, you know, locked leg or whatever, where I couldn't feel like I could move a certain part of my leg. And it was making it very hard to play the double bass. And I had to kind of do the double bass on my opposite foot, because it was my main foot that had a cramp in it that just came on all of a sudden. And I just said, ooh, that's really cramping me, and it was bad. But, you know, I've done that. So, yes, I admit that there's been plenty of times where I still said the shows must go on, you know, kind of concept. But in this case, no. I just felt like, whatever. So it's ironic that, you know, here I am, basically undiagnosed having COVID. Everyone else around me had the flu. And I'm thinking, okay, well, at least they don't have what I have. Because as much as now the flu involves the constant diarrhea, the constant throwing up, I probably wouldn't have wanted that to have happened. And to have that, you know? Because I just, you know, hate the idea of throwing up, you know, diarrhea, whatever. I do. But as much as I hate that, COVID was just worse for me. I just felt that was probably the worst sickness I ever had, just because of how it was annoying. Like, not being able to taste certain food. I almost felt like I wasn't going to eat rice again, that I wasn't going to eat oatmeal again, that I wasn't going to eat plain potatoes, that I wasn't going to eat soup again. That bread, that most of all the normal foods I loved to have eaten, I just would have never eaten them ever again. And I would have just been like, how am I going to ever eat this again without psychologically feeling traumatized? So it was bad. But I did eventually get over it after those 2 weeks, and I did eventually start to feel better. And once I did, eventually the pandemic hit about a month or so later, in about March, and I had to then do my classes virtually online and take astronomy, which I've got an F in, because the amount of stuff you had to do for the experiments and all that stuff and everything else you had to do, I didn't even do any of the experiments. I just did all the paper stuff because I just didn't have time or the resources. I was like, how the hell are you supposed to do a class like this and get together and do this with people? With a class like this that requires this much work to be done is just nearly impossible. And I'm like, I love astronomy, but the math, and here I am getting an A in physics when I took physics class. And it's weird. You would have thought that the physics would have been harder, but it's actually not. It was more fun. It's more engaging. The astronomy was just like, it was fun, but it was just so, like, it was the way, really, not so much what we're learning, but the structure and what needed to be done to learn this stuff, that the way you had to learn it, and the report thing, and the, like, you know, projects you had to do each week, where you had to do a certain project on the topic we were on, and get these, basically these experiments that you'd have to get data from, and the way you'd have to collect it is like so long, and like 6 pages of all this stuff you had to collect and write about, and just it was complex, and I just failed at it. The math was terrible. I would always get the stuff in on time, just barely, but it was just terrible. I just was not good at it, and so I had to eventually take another science. But once that guy was kind of done with that stressful semester, I said, I'm in the house, I'm stuck. What do I do? It's going to be about summertime. I need something to do. And I said, I really wanted to do this since, I had COVID, that I wanted to really start to work out again, because until about 4 or 5 years before that, when I last was at an actual active gym, is when, as I said, I got injured with my foot. I had a 45-pound weight drop on my big toe. It was not my fault. A weight was put back in the wrong spot, and it rolled off the thing that holds the weights, because I couldn't grab it because there was not enough room without it slipping off the edge for me to be able to grab it without the weight falling from about probably the height of this table to my foot. So about 3 or 4 feet, 5 feet in the air that it dropped, and it was big enough that it caused nerve damage all the way up to my knee, and I had to take a medicine called Neurontin, and it messed me up, and I somehow had to play my first ever show in a live band, at a house show. And it's the day that I met a lot of my friends and a lot of the people I'm friends with today because of that show. But I somehow was able to manage to, get to that point. And I impressed a lot of people with my drum set and with my playing. And somehow I was able to do that with my leg being a month out. So I had to really learn how to do a lot of the double bass and a lot of stuff with my other, foot, with my left foot, because I just couldn't do it all on my right on certain parts. But I managed to do it, and I managed to play that show, and we fucking were one of the tightest bands at the time, because we just really, really practiced a lot, and it was great. And we just had a great time, and it was fun. But, the thing was, I didn't go back to a gym since then because of how they dicked me over, how they finally started to check their equipment to make sure that everything was okay, to make sure that all the equipment was where it needed to be, to make sure that, everything was good, and it kind of screwed me over, because when that happened, I just realized that, I can go to a better gym. Because if there was an injury or something, they're going to take the injury seriously. They're going to try to compensate me some way or some shape or form, no matter whose fault it was. It happened in their facility. It should be their problem. They should deal with it. And I could have tried to sue, but a lawyer was like, what are you going to get? He's like, you got to sue the people that made the equipment. You got to sue Leisure Fitness. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess in a way you're right, because I can't go after the person who improperly put the weight back. But really, the place there should know that, hey, this weight is not put back. There should only be 2 of these on either side of this rack. That, this thing that holds these weights, there's not enough room because it's not wide enough to fit 3. If you put a third one on there and you try to grab it, it's so close to the edge that you can't get your hands around it. It could possibly slip. But if obviously there's only 2, there's enough overlap of the bar sticking out that you can pull it up enough that then you can grip on it so that you have a tight grip, and then you can yank it off and, whatever. But somebody obviously just was either lazy or just, they just wanted to put it back a certain way. And Planet Fitness, like compared to the gym I'm at now, the Edge, there's a big difference. The Edge is more of a gym. So you're going to get more gym people that are very much serious about the gym. They're not people that are just starting out. Okay, not that that's a bad thing. It's just that their motive is they're really like a gym. Like, you're going to get, not so much gym bros, but just you're going to get really good gym people that just have gym etiquette, that know how to take care of machines, keep them clean. Just, they know the workarounds, and they just know how to be respectful. you know, and, you know, make sure weights are put back properly in the proper spots, and make, like, they know that stuff. Like, they've either worked in gyms, or they've been working out a long time, or they do some sort of activity or sport, or whatever they do, and they're very active in their life. They're very aware of what the policy is. But when you get, you know, a place like Planet Fitness, where it kind of encourages people that haven't really thought about, you know, changing their diet, changing their lifestyle, working out, wanting to get better, they might make a mistake or two. Someone might not put a weight back in a certain spot, or might not know how to do this or do that exercise, or might do this wrong, or might not, you know the etiquettes around things, because they just haven't been at a gym like that to know that stuff. So I get it that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, unfortunately, a place like that should understand that that's the kind of gym they have, and the people should be on top of that. So that's why I just went so long without being at the gym, that by this time, about 5 years later, and I was mostly just like, you know, working out from home and stuff like that as best I could, and kind of working out with just some weights that I bought from Walmart or whatever. I said, I'm going to do the same thing. If I got to be stuck inside during the pandemic, and I got to try to get better, I am going to work out every other day. So I devised a workout plan. I'm not going to say that this part of the video is a plug, or that I'm plugging anything, or that, not a plug really, but more of that I'm giving you this workout plan to try. But, well, if you want to try it, if you think that this logic, you know, makes sense to you, and you think this is something you'd want to do, go for it. But what I basically did was used a deck of cards, where I started out basically following a plan my friend Zach told me about, that was actually a plan that was mostly followed in jails. And it's crazy to say this, but it is a plan that a lot of people in jails would follow. Is they would take these cards, and you would pull a card, and whatever number was on the card would basically tell you the amount of reps that you had to do for that particular exercise, whether it's crunches, whether it's pull-ups, whether it's lat downs, whether it's leg lifts, whether it's you know, forward lunges, whether it's jump down, whatever the exercise is. You know, pull-ups on a pull-up bar, or crunches, or, you know, doing you know, push-ups, or whatever the exercise was, it would tell you the number. And I kind of did that for a while, but then I eventually devised a plan. And the plan I came up with involved basically a 14-day cycle that would go for 2 weeks. And what I basically did was work out every other day for about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how long it took on that day. And basically did that, okay? And I noticed, as I took progress photos, and as I went, basically within that year, almost every 2 weeks I had a progress photo. And all the photos I took, my body went from being skinny fat to being, I mean, I was seeing the results in my gym, which was basically my bedroom floor. I just had some like small weights that I got from Walmart. I had a Simply Fit board. I had a bar thing that goes on my door, and also that can be used to help do like women push-ups on the ground, or like help with other type of like exercises, and use it as a bar to help, like, you know, be able to do certain things. Well, what ended up happening was I ended up going and saying that I'm going to start basically with these cards, and I'm going to lay them all out, and each card is going to represent a certain day of the plan, okay? I don't know why I did it this way rather than writing, like, this is day one, you know, but it was just, like, a weird, like, unique way I did this to remember. It was, like, a 3 was, like, you know, like, an ab day, a 10 was a cardio day, and then a 6 was a lower body day, and then another 6 would be an upper body day. And I set it up where the first day of the plan would be all mid-body, where I did crunches, lower body leg lifts, and then I did an oblique twist, where I would take the medicine ball and go 1, 2, you know, back and forth, while slightly twisting my body as I pulled it over my stomach to the other side, and then to the other side the other way. And I would do these 3 exercises, and the goal eventually was, starting out with 0 weights, I would do it first at 0, is I would basically have to continue a process of doing basically sets until I can get to 100 perfectly in one set. So, like, I would basically start with 5 sets of 20, okay? And basically do that, okay, for the duration of basically those 2 weeks. That would be where I'd be set at, is 5 sets of 20. And then eventually, it would go up from there, okay, where I basically then would do 5 sets of 20, but then I would go up and do, 30, 30, 30, and 10. And then 40 and 40. And then 50 and 50. And then, 70, 30, 80, 20, 90, 10, and then 100. And by the end, I would be able to complete an entire set of whatever that exercise is, all at one time, all the way through, without a stop. So I'm slowly building up and adding more reps. So it was about more reps and less weight. More reps, less weight. That is always what I stood by. Okay? Not the other way around. You don't want to lift big and get ankle arms. You want to build your muscle fibers. And as you continue to slowly contract and expand your muscle fibers, that is going to build true strength. You might not look like it, like you're this just amazingly huge buff guy. You're going to look very tight, very lean, muscular. Like, you're going to be fit. Like, you're going to be ripped and fit. Okay? But you're not going to look like the Hulk. Because if you look like the Hulk, because you were eating a million carbs, like most bodybuilders do, and stuff like that, or taking supplements, or whatever they do, and you were to do that, and while doing that, you were to, do that, but then also, just, again, lift heavy, and just go straight for lifting heavy. You're going to get ankle arms like SpongeBob, where you're going to get these muscles, but are they going to really stay there? Or are they really going to... Because then the minute you stop, whatever that routine is, whatever that thing is that you're doing, what was going to happen? You would stop, and then what? Your muscles go away, and they pop like, SpongeBob's ankle arms did, like a balloon, and when they pop, that's it. And that's what happens. So the thing is that, you always want to focus on less weight, more reps in this case, because that really helps, So I started out with the first day that I did on the, abs and stuff. I did that. Then I'd take a rest day. Then the day after that would be a cardio day, okay? And I would kind of do some form of cardio that was very light, or that kind of worked on my legs more than anything, like going up some steps, or doing the Simply Fit board, or something that involved, like, my legs really having to work. That worked out my legs, my hamstrings, because then that gave me a rest day, but that prepared me for the third day in the cycle, technical third day, that I ended up doing, leg exercises, which I usually did forward lunges, I did squats, and I ended up also doing, backwards leg lifts, where you kick your feet towards your butt, from lying on your stomach, and kind of did that thing. And that always would be, like, at the end, there would always be a rapid fire exercise on each. So there would be, like, a rapid fire arm exercise. There would be a rapid fire exercise for mid body, which is like with, doing the, like, oblique exercise. And there would be a rapid fire with legs as the third exercise. And so then I did that. Then there was a break, okay? Then it went from that back to having a mid-body day, where I did abs of any kind, the same type of 3 exercises. and then had another rest day, another cardio day, but now this cardio day involves more running or doing something faster. So I would like run in the hallway and just go back and forth and do laps like the pacer test and just do it from like one door to like the other door in the upstairs hallway, which was just this one long straight hallway from like my dad's door to like the laundry door to about where my room was, and just said, I'm just gonna do that, right? And then, eventually I did that and just kept going back and forth. And again, that when I did that type of thing, I went until eventually I could get to a certain number of steps that I needed to get and count what that was for that to happen. So, then once I did that, there was obviously another rest day, and then it went back to one more cardio day after I did arm day. So arm day, again, I did arms like pull-ups. I did some woman push-ups because that really focused on your arms more than your core as much being used. And then also did, various exercises where I did all of the different like arm type of exercises you would do on machines, which was I did like curls, I did a tricep one, I did one where you lift your arms over your head. I did the ones where you fly out like this to the side. I did the ones where you go in like that with your chest. I did the ones where you go up like this. I did every direction, forward, backwards, upside down, whatever you want to call it. I did every single direction of those types of exercises that I could do. And then eventually, after that first cycle, I add in 5 pounds. So after about the 9-week period that goes for, that you're really just building up over those 9 weeks, getting to where you can do all of that for 100 reps total without any. Then I eventually got from there and then went up to 5 pounds. And then I did that for a bit. And then eventually I got to a point after about a year and a half to almost 2 years, whatever it was, that I did it for. I got to eventually about up to 20 pounds with being able to do it, because I was at 15 at one point, then I got to 20. Excuse me. And that's kind of what happened, is that I just ended up getting, to that point where I was able to do, 20, reps of that and really get to that point. So once I did kind of have that happen and kind of get to that point where I could do that, that I felt great. I went a year almost entirely with really not getting sick much. And I eventually got to about the year 2021, it was August of 21, where I finally got sick for the first time, which was really bad. When I did get sick, I ended up actually finding out that my primary doctor, Dr. Federline, was no longer my doctor anymore and was gone. And when I found out he left the practice, I thought, well, geez, who's going to be my primary now? Because he was like the best doctor. Found out during the pandemic that he left to go to another hospital or another place where they thought they needed and really needed him. And I ended up getting in a situation of feeling like, what was I going to do at this point? How was I going to be able to, get seen? Because they said they were backed up due to the pandemic and I needed an antibiotic. And of course, my lung doctor that I used to have for years, when I had a doctor in Delaware, was always able to get me those medications ASAP, right away. And was able to go right away, straight away, and say, I'm going to get you these medications sent to you. Because I had a written note that said the pharmacy would be able to send it to me if I wasn't able to schedule an appointment because he was busy or not in the office, that somebody there would be nice enough to get me an appointment and get that stuff scheduled and ensure that I would get that medicine right away without one problem. So the thing was that in this case, because I didn't have anything like that written on there, I couldn't see anyone. It got so bad that eventually my eardrum bursted. Now, to back this up, I had a hole in my eardrum since I was very little and had experimental Teflon tubes. If anyone can relate, it was a terrible experience. I remember going to AI DuPont Hospital multiple times where the tubes kept coming out, where the lady would do the ear test, put the really big freaking ear things in my ears, and would literally pull the earphones out and the tube would just come out with it. And I wouldn't feel anything. Like, as if there was anything, like, that wasn't supposed to be in there. The tube would just fucking come out. And she looked, and it was crazy the day it happened the one time. Because I was like, so funny. I was like, is that supposed to happen? And she was like, no. And I was like, okay. Awkward. She eventually pulled out the left side, and it also came out. And I'm like, so that thing is very powerful, apparently. I mean, they put that headset on you, it would, like, be fucking pushing. I'm like, do we not have to have something that is pushing on my damn skull so hard? Like, as if I know they're trying to block out all the fucking outside. I got Sony headphones. Well, downstairs I have them that are fucking super cushioned, that are just this big, and they go over the ears like this, and they're soft, and and I don't hear nothing from the outside. It blocks all. It just natural. I guess they didn't have the technology at the time to build something or construct something enough that would block the sound out. But Jesus, like, it was terrible. And yeah, anyway, they popped out. So, you know, that's how the hole, anyway, initially when the Teflon tubes were put in there, that's when the hole actually appeared and became a problem. So I always had it, and doctors always thought that I should get ear surgery for it, but I just never did. And it eventually got to a point where we decided, well, if I get to the ear surgery, let's just see if it naturally heals. And it was starting to heal on its own. It was starting to finally cover up, and the hole was finally starting to not be a pinhole anymore. It was starting to spiderweb, as my doctor told me, that it was getting like, you know, this like skin that was forming over it enough that it was almost healed on its own completely. And if it ever did eventually heal on its own, I wouldn't have to be as careful or worry about getting water in it, even though I probably should, you know, not do that anyway, and then I wouldn't have to worry about wearing earplugs again around water, or if I shower, or if I'm near a pool, or whatever, as much. Not that I do that now anyway, and then I'm extra careful with getting water in there, but that just, you know, I gotta watch out about that stuff, right? Well, what happens is I realize at this point, okay, that I'm in a situation where I just am so sick and have blown my nose so much and have gotten so much snot out that it causes me to have this issue where now my eardrum is blown again, and it felt like there was pressure in there and air was like stuck in there, and it felt weird, like as if you were just coming off a plane from high altitude. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, now I gotta deal with this for 2 weeks and more. And I had to take ear drops as well. My insurance did not cover me for the drops, so of course, because they didn't cover me for them, I had to get 2 separate drops that eventually ended up making the same thing, but just that that's what I had to do in order for me, in this case, to be able to, you know, actually, you know, get the drops and the necessary medications I needed in there to help heal the infection that I got from that. And between that and being sick and all of that, it was terrible, but, you know, my ENT was very nice and was able to get me squeezed in right away so that I could get an appointment and be able to help me out so that I could go do what I needed to do and go, you know, be able to actually, you know, get better. And then I, again, went, you know, like a period of time without being sick, and it wasn't until, you know, about the you know, fall of the next year into 22, where I ended up going to my primary to meet with a new doctor for a well visit. A well visit, wouldn't you think? Finally, a well visit. When we saw the doctor, we were asking the doctor and said, Dr. Locampton, are you going to be here for a while? Because I want to make sure that you're going to be here, because if you're not here, what am I going to do? I need to know that you're going to, I'll be here for 3 years, my contract doesn't expire. That was the first thing. So we were able to establish a new patient with him. And then also we asked, and can you also make a written note on your chart that says, hey, I can't take, this, and I can't take that, but here's what I can take, and, make sure you can order it to the pharmacy if it's a day you're not there or available, that someone can just order it if we know it's the same symptoms and the same stuff. Oh, Roberto's got the stuff again, he's got sick again, and then whatever, right? And the thing was that when that, would happen, that situation, we thought it would make it easier. Well, of course, the first thing that happens is I get to about 2022, December of 2022, and I ended up having an issue where I ended up eating too much cheese. And it backed me up so much that the night before Christmas, on Christmas Eve, I was up all night long in the bathroom with this diarrhea that really was annoying and painful and just mostly liquid, and it was bad. I mean, I was just not feeling well, and I was sick, and it was terrible. I just didn't know what to do, So when that happened, it got to a point where I just was up all night. And of course, here I am excited about the next day, getting to go to 2 different Christmas Eve parties. One, which was to go to one of my family members' house, and then also be able to go after that to go to a friend of my mom's, who she's no longer friends with, but we used to go to their house all the time. After my grandmother passed, we kind of went there for quite a few years, and they were Italian like me, and they would have all of the different seafood items that you would want, and the calamari, and the oysters, and the shrimp, and the meatballs, and the appetizers and hors d'oeuvres. Everything they would have would be so great, and they would have a big party all the time and cook all kinds of food, and then eventually the next day they would have an actual dinner and have Christmas dinner with some immediate family and whatever, like most people. But it was just great. It was just a great thing. And the thing was, when it came to that I was just like, damn, like, this is a bummer. Like, I'm not going to be able to enjoy the freaking calamari that my mom showed me, because she would make the best fried calamari you ever had. It was fresh, wild caught, expensive, and she would just make the batter just right, and it would be light and crispy, but also flaky, and it wouldn't be too rubbery. You could, like, bite right through it without it, like, falling off or whatever. Like, she just knew what to do. It just was so good every single time. And so here I am disappointed. So I kind of mildly just ate some things, because I took an Imodium that day, like 2 of them. And that backed me up to where I wasn't pooping again. And for a few days after, even, I still felt kind of weird that couple Christmases after that. And just felt sick and just like, said, you know what? I got a resolution for next year. I'm cutting out cheese. And I know that now today, that yes, there are certain cheeses I definitely don't eat. The other day I was at a wedding and kind of cheated and had a couple pieces of cheese, because I will do that sometimes. On a rare occasion, on a special occasion, once in a blue moon, I'll have some stuff like that, because it's okay to eat. And it's within what I would eat on the diet, just I don't do it often, okay? But at the time, though, I was definitely like, okay, I gotta, because, I just had too much cheese. I mean, I had a pizza literally like 2 days prior to being sick, and then I remember getting a grilled cheese for dinner. Not thinking that, wait, I just had this giant pizza that had ricotta, mozzarella, and I didn't go to the bathroom the day after that because I was so backed up, and then finally okay, this really was too much cheese, and it upset my stomach. So then I thought, I'm going to change my diet up, and I'm going to kind of cut out cheese, and I kind of also was like going flexitarian, trying to kind of eat a lot of vegan type plant-based foods, and stuff, because I got kind of so much into all that stuff, and environmental stuff, and I was just all down that rabbit hole, and partially following in footsteps of my one twin from Canada, who is also currently a vegan, and went through like a lot of these different things, and did that. And I went obviously for part of that year, and I had a problem, because the problem I had was that it got to 2023, and I ended up getting sick, actually, um, because I just did. January came, and I got hit. So of course, here's our first trial to see what's going to happen here, right? And am I going to get the medicine sent away from the pharmacy if I can't see my doctor? And what happens? Nothing. I mean, we call the people, we give them a message, and they relay it to them. 3 days later, nothing. Sent to the pharmacy. Still nothing. So we thought, okay, maybe this is your first trial run of this, because we didn't, whatever. But I was, doing a lot of things with strangers at the time. We were really, really, really starting to take off with our new direction, with Andy on vocals and Zach on guitar, and then we got a new bass player, and we were all, getting ready to do a lot of things, had the new logo design made up, all this stuff we were getting ready to do to make this thing happen and be this awesome thing. And it just became a situation where at that time I just was like, this has gotta work, because if it doesn't, what's the point of putting that on my chart, saying that I need antibiotic as soon as possible? I was sick about 6 times that year. And I was sick about 6 times because of just how freaking insane it was to try to get that message through to the doctor, that the person at the front desk, my mom, a lot of times was ready to wring that person's head out and ream her out, because she was just like, what are you doing? Like, why? Oh, well, I'm so sorry, your son's not feeling well, or not feeling okay. And I'm like, what? Like that kind of way, like in a, sassy way, like, so it's like, okay, we get it, great, but like, come on, get it moving. Like, the doctor needs to know, like, this shit needs to fucking happen. If it doesn't fucking happen, we're gonna have a problem here. And they would only be able to give me 5 doses if they weren't able to give me an actual full dose, because of the issue. So when they would give me the emergency dose, it wouldn't be enough. It'd be enough to make me feel a little better, but it would suppress my system enough I could re-catch it again. And I remember the day after the festival that my band played, I ended up getting sick from my brother, who was actually sick with a minor cold. And of course, I had to ride with him and be with him in the car, because he was the only way that I could get my drums transported to the venue. And he pulled through and helped me, and it was a great experience, and I'm glad that I didn't cancel. Didn't know he had a cold or a sniffle or something, but I was like, man, like, you guys are full. And I'm like, it's kind of a weird situation, but I've had a lot of health issues, and like, I'm really worried. My brother's got a cold thing, and like, I gotta be careful, and like, oh, just, whatever. And like, it was gonna be weird to have to say that, but I was like, hey, I'm like, fuck, like, what am I gonna do now? Like, I have to ride with him. I could put a mask on. Of course, we already were in the car, and we were talking about stuff, and it was just whatever. And oh well, being almost the whole day around him, and it was enough to get me sick. I got sick again, had to be an antibiotic again, just the whole thing. And it went on until eventually my twin finally, after 8 years, came to visit for the first time. We finally got to see each other, 2023 of that year. And when we did, I remember she recommended a multivitamin from the New York Natural Health Store that I shop at. Buy one. Maybe you might need some vitamins. Maybe there's some things you're deficient in. Let's see what happens. And I went almost a whole year. Almost a whole year without getting sick while on that vitamin. But then it went to about you know, February of that next year. Okay? Starting in February. Went to about February, where I went to a golf simulator with my dad called Birdie's down in Middletown that opened up just recently, about last year. And I somehow injured myself at the simulator, but not during the simulator, but it was like days after I felt sore. I don't know if I wasn't swinging all the way through or what I was doing wrong, or that my dad possibly was getting faked out by the fact there was no roof. I mean, that there was a roof, blocking, like, even though you're not close enough to anywhere near hitting the roof, because they make sure there's enough clearance for any golf club at anyone in almost any height. Unless they have, like, a shack or some guy coming in there like that, they might say, hey, like, that might not work. But the point is that it became a situation where, I had, this leg pain that was, like, in my calf area, where I ended up having like a compression thing that I would wear on my leg. And I currently have it on now because I actually like using it a lot when going to the days that I go to the gym or doing legs, just because it does really help give me that extra strength. And I also can use the other one in the other leg as well. But it just became this kind of situation, where I felt that was going to help, because it felt like I maybe either pulled something or pulled them, and I thought it was going to last for a few months, or not even that, maybe a few weeks, and then maybe it would get better. But it kept going on, and eventually got to about June of that year. We're going like 5 months in advance here, and it just never stopped. And what happened? Well, because it never stopped, I have to go to a doctor called Dr. Ma, because I found out when scheduling an appointment that my doctor, Dr. Lowcamp, was no longer there. He left way before his 3-year contract was expired. Didn't obviously extend it, that I thought he was, and moved and went somewhere else. And I said, just great. You not only have my practice merging with Christiana, which has caused a lot of issues, but now that doctor's gone. Now, yet again, I don't have a primary doctor. And because I didn't establish with one, because I went again almost a year without one, and they said before, hey, well, you went like a whole year without seeing us, so we can't really give you antibiotic unless you see someone. And then that's where I had to emergency go to my freaking ENT doctor and get her to give me medication that I need and all of that. It was terrible. So, at that moment, I realized I'm just going to have to see this guy, and I ironically found out it was a guy that my stepdad at one point, my ex-stepdad, I should say, he saw the doctor before plenty of times, and was established with him a few times. So, it wasn't someone that we didn't know the name of, or that we weren't aware of, or it was some weird doctor. But I had to go all the way to Northeast and go to a different office that was at the Northeast Shopping Center where the Walmart is. And then we basically went to the appointment to see the guy, and we wanted to ask about stuff, and he asked some questions and this or that, and so we'll get some tests done, x-rays, some other tests, but then let's check the blood work as well, because we thought, hey, this isn't really a physical, but he did go like almost a whole year without being sick, except for this leg thing that just came up. Is there something else that could be going on? Let's check the blood work. And what did we notice on the blood work? White blood cell count was low. Didn't think much of it. And about 2 weeks later, I then end up with something I thought, at least up to this point in the story, the worst pain I've ever had. And what I found out I ended up having was epididymitis, an inflammation of the tube that carries and transfers sperm to your scrotum, and then eventually out your tube to be released for whatever reason. Well, it felt like my limp testicle was just like twice the size, and it was inflamed, and it was painful to wear any kind of tight pants, and it was painful in general just to move around or sleep. I mean, I just had to like lay a certain way on my back, and I had to prop it up with ice and other stuff. I mean, it was terrible. It was the worst feeling that I ever had. What did I do one day? Well, a Friday. Mind you, a day that we are getting hurricane remnants. Okay? That are obviously about to come and go up the coast and could cause tornadoes to happen and, you know, some heavy wind and rain damage and other things. And it was pretty much just kind of dreary and rainy and not that good that day. Anxiety was through the roof. I mean, my anxiety that day was probably the worst it ever was. I was like a kid. I was like, oh my God, like, no, like, you know, like, here I am, I was an adult, and I'm, like, actually having this weird, like, freak out over that, right? And the thing was that eventually after, like, you know, in the afternoon, my mom said, well, I'll take you. We'll go to the, you know, ER Christiana, and we'll go get this checked out, because we got to see what this thing is. And we got to see what we can do for it, because it's not getting better. Well, I have a condition called CIP. Alright, I'll tell you this. If you don't know what it is, it just means that you don't basically feel pain that well. That can be a really good thing, but also a really bad thing. Because if there is something that's painful, and you don't really tell them how painful it is, you're going to be waiting a long time in the ER, and did I make that mistake? My mom was like, and you should have told him it was like a 7 or 8. I said, well, it feels like a 3 or 4 to me, even though it probably is a 7 or 8. Or maybe it's not, but you know, to me it's a 3 or 4 because I can handle pain really well. Is it annoying? Yes, it's annoying. Very annoying. Yes, it's very annoying, but was it painful? No. I mean, I got hit by a car once in front of my house, flipped over twice, hit my head on the ground, and thought I could stand up and thought I was going to be able to go to school that day. Maybe I was in shock. But, and maybe that's different because you, at that point, like, don't even know what's going on. But even days after I was injured, I had a doctor on a table, take my leg, pull it all different directions, tell me that I'd be eventually okay to go to school because I said, oh, I'm fine. I didn't feel anything that, like, felt out of order. And yet the main doctor comes in and says, oh, you got a pelvic and hip fracture. If it doesn't heal properly within 6 weeks, you could be paralyzed from the waist down if the surgery we do is not successful. But if we are able to be successful and shove this little rod in basically the bone right here that connects your entire left leg basically to this, or your entire lower body to your upper mid-body, you could be paralyzed waist down, being in a wheelchair the rest of your life. And here comes the nurse practitioner that first saw me and checked me out, looking behind us with shock on his face, like, I just told that guy that? Hey, that's my condition. It wasn't really his fault. Hopefully he didn't get fired for that. I'm sorry, dude, if you did. But I have a high tolerance to pain. Almost anything. I mean, when the 45-pound weight dropped on my foot, I was just pissed. It didn't even fucking hurt. I felt all of it. I fucking felt that shit. But I was just like, whatever. But I had to sit there. I had to wait in the waiting room for hours and hours until they saw me. Finally, then when I got in the room I was in, I had to wait even more hours. It just went on to a point where eventually I realized from having to wait so long that I just didn't know if I was ever going to get an answer or ever get the hell out of the hospital. But finally, after some x-rays, CAT scans, ultrasound, whatever you call it, they eventually, you know, got the results back. And the guy that was running the ER at the time came and basically was like, look, you have epididymitis, and we're going to have to give you levofloxacin and prescribe you that for 10 days, and then you should feel better. It's an antibiotic that is really, 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 really strong. My mom warned me that it could blow an Achilles out if you're not careful, and I actually knew someone that happened to, and I'm like, so don't do anything too strenuous, or work out at the gym too hard, or do this or do that. So I kind of lied low and did very low working outs and, you know, stuff like that, because I was still going to the gym and working out and getting exercise and trying to, you know, still work out despite that my leg was still having a problem, which we didn't exactly get an answer to at the time anyway. And so what happened was that eventually the situation was that I went and was fine, actually, after 2 weeks, except for that I then ended up getting super backed up and having an issue of not being able to go to the bathroom. And I remember this night like it was yesterday. I spent all night long trying to go to the bathroom. I tried everything possible. I tried some things such as using a whole tub of Vaseline. I tried drinking plenty of water. I tried getting up and making oats at whatever time in the morning, hoping that would push stuff out. And yes, it started to move after I made the oats, after I ate a whole bowl of it and put a little bit of the pure syrup and the sugar and all that stuff. I did all that I could. And eventually, sometime in the morning, it all in one piece, this big thing came out. And I don't know where it came from, how it came out, but it finally did. The water pushed it out. And I felt fine after that. Weeks after that, I was like, that's almost a week's worth. I was fine. I did end up going to the bagel shop that morning, actually, and thought I'm going to try to eat something, but keep it something light like that, even though I don't know if that's the thing to eat, but I thought I'll try it, something like that, and then I'll go work out at the gym, and that was my morning after that, after getting up finally at 5 or 6 in the morning, whatever it was, to get up, because I just, that was the problem I had. So because of that happening, what I realized was that just something, and most likely due to the medication, was the reason why I ended up in that position in the first place. It was because of not having a good, adequate probiotic that was helping my stomach absorb the medicine properly, and that fucked my gut up. And that happened. So then it was okay for a few weeks until the epididymitis came back. Now, when it came back the second time, what ended up happening was I ended up going first to actually see a show. It was actually the part of the story I missed is the actual night, before, I actually was at a show, which was the Lamb of God / Mastodon Ashes of Leviathan tour. I somehow stood the entire night with that problem, and it was painful. Mind you, then, the night after that is when I went to the hospital to get figured out about the epididymitis and all that. And then it was actually the next day I was going to a Slipknot show with my brother and one of his work friends that he used to work with years ago, and that he's been friends with for years, that lived in the Philly area, that met us there and went to the show. Well, the thing was, he was actually describing to me how he has epididymitis chronically. Gets it about once or twice every year. Because he had an incident from working a masonry job for so long that he eventually had twisted the tube, and that you can either get it due to an internal infection, or that you can actually damage the tube, and then unless a certain surgery gets done, that then kind of makes it where you can't produce the sperm the way that you used to. If you don't do that, you're just going to get it chronically, but you'll be fine other than that, and they just have to give a levofloxacin every once or twice a year whenever it happens, and it would be random and sporadic that it would pop back up and happen. And I thought, dude, that's crazy. That urologist was like, oh, like, this is twisted and there's nothing you can do for it, right? So I felt like, well, damn, I hope, like, that's not what's happening to me, and, like, I have something that's, like, constant, But so the thing was that, then we go like 2 weeks, and I got it again. It was hard to get antibiotic this time because we weren't really sure of who the guy was in the ER that we saw, per se, and didn't remember his name and couldn't figure out that information, per se, so I didn't really know on how we could get access to that because he was just whatever guy that was working at the ER at the time. I don't know, maybe it may have been listed on the paper or something we had, but we didn't know really what to do. So, with that, what happened was I realized I gotta do something. Like, I have, excuse me, to do something, for this. I gotta figure out what's wrong. I gotta do something for this situation. I just have to. Like, I have to figure out what the fuck I need to do because this is just a problem. And so, what I realized with that kind of situation is that, I just, like, felt like I can't go through this. Like, I gotta go to your urologist, and I gotta get a doctor to figure out what the fuck's going on, so that I can be assured, like, that this is whatever is happening. So, of course, what happens? Well, I ended up going to a urologist down in Bel Air. They wanted to scope me. And right then and there, I said, nope, I'm not getting scoped. I'm not gonna get, anyone shoving a thing in my tube and going up in there. They were checking for bladder issues. They were trying to check for kidney stones. They were trying to check for any infections or the C word or anything else. That could be why that area was inflamed or having these problems. And it could be a double whammy, because I did have, obviously, these other health issues that came up afterwards that we realized were really the cause of a lot of my problems, but we just, at the time, felt like, was this the issue? So, the situation was, right, when we finally get to the actual urologist down in Hopkins and finally get an appointment about 2-3 weeks later, and finally go to see the urologist, when I do, I notice that she said there was nothing wrong with that area, that everything looked healthy and fine, that your blood work looks fine, and that there's nothing wrong, and you're going to be fine. But she did recommend, I think you should go to a GI doctor, because I think it is GI related. I think it is gastrointestinal related, because of some of the issues you mentioned about always having issues with bowel things, and you having a large colon, and other things with your stomach, and other things that are off, and you got a small this and small that. All these other issues, so go to a urologist. So we think, okay, we'll go to one. So we go to see Dr. Valerie Owen, or Nurse Valerie Owen, at, Hopkins. And this was the best nurse/doctor that I've ever seen. She was the brightest, the smartest, knew so many things, and was just great at everything she did. She was fantastic, and once I finally became established patient with her, I felt like I was on the right track, because when I went to the appointment, and we obviously went to go talk with her, I said, okay, I, was asking about, like, A2 milk versus, like, regular milk, and, like, other digestive, like, questions about things, and, like, could it be, like, stuff I'm eating or other, and she's like, well, yeah, we're going to test you for celiac. And I said, okay, so it's a gluten issue. Well, at the time, I informed her, I already kind of experimented. I did low FODMAP for a little bit over a part of that summer, and at that point, I was actually gluten-free. And she's like, well, good on you for going gluten-free, but unfortunately, always the word unfortunately, they say, you're going to have to go back the other way for 8 weeks before we can test you. So I did. I went back the other way for about 8 weeks. They went to go do the test, and I was going to get ready to do the test, and then a problem came up. It was about this time of the year that this happened, last year, that I had this issue of getting sick from my nephew. And mind you, I almost went a whole year without getting a cold. I was sick with other things, epididymitis, stomach, but not like a cold, because I was still taking that multivitamin until I eventually stopped it, thinking, is the multivitamin causing any problems? And is it really gluten-free, and is it this, and is it that? And so the situation was that, until then, I finally had to get on antibiotic again. Still didn't have a primary. Mind you, when I went to the urologist, for example, to go for the appointment, and they asked who my primary was, it was the exact moment my mom was checking the chart to give the lady the name, that the name changed in live time over the internet to a different name. That's how many changes they've had, that they weren't going to have until the spring of this year, March of this year. that they were going to have anything available because their system got backed up and was double booking patients until 2025. I was like, what in the fuck is going on? Right? So because of that complication, I realized that, I'm definitely at the right place because my primary is just that there's nothing they're going to be able to do. But I had to still go through to them to get antibiotics somehow, and I was able to eventually get it. And of course, try to take my, breathing treatment meds and everything. Well, I found out I wasn't able to get my breathing treatment meds because within the whole time and the year or so of that happening, my insurance changed. Didn't even know about it. If I got a letter in the mail, didn't even know about it. And that's how that shit happens sometimes, right? And I'm thinking, what in the absolute hell is going on? And of course, it became this situation where we had to try to contact the people to figure out the information about the insurance thing. And the reason we wanted to do that, to try to figure out the information, is so that I could actually give it to the pharmacy, because they said if they didn't have the accurate information, how can they order these medications that cost a lot? Brovana, Pulmicort, and albuterol cost a lot out of pocket. For those, breathing machine meds they cost a ton. And I'm like, how the fuck am I going to do this, right? So, of course, what happens? Well, it gets to a situation where I end up finding out that the pharmacy we were trying to figure on getting this medicine to get sent to was not a pharmacy that was accepted by the insurance I had. And we would have been, if we would have been told at some point sooner that that was the case, I bet you, if that was the case, that I would have easily had, just, got it sent to whatever pharmacy I was able to go to, whether a Walgreens or whatever. Finally, we got it straightened out. Finally, I got the breathing meds I needed. Finally, got all that stuff. And the reason this was important was because I couldn't test and do the blood work if I was sick. And it was going to delay the time I was going to be sick. And it was about, the second or third week in November, after about 2 weeks of, this kind of happening about the time of this coming up week. That about 2 weeks in November, after I'm finally done with the antibiotic, waited long enough because I wanted to wait a few extra days, make sure everything was out of my system. And then that's when I decided at that point to go get tested. And here we go to a day, that was on a Friday, before a vacation. I said, I'm, been sick, had a lot of stuff going on. I finally need to have some sort of vacation because I have just been so sick at this point. You talk about having an extended stomach, losing almost all of your weight, being at 95 pounds, no muscle mass, no muscle definition, weakness beyond weakness. I couldn't even hold a drumstick. I couldn't even lift my arm up to play the drums, let alone even hit a bass pedal at all. I could not do any of those things with my legs, and would get easily tired. I could not sleep. Anxiety and depression were through the roof. I basically had every metabolic function in my body all in shambles, upside down, that it was bad. And we thought hopefully by going gluten-free, that would start to heal my gut. I would start to absorb more of the nutrients that I need because of my gut having time to heal. And then my body would start to restore itself, and all the functions that were wrong with my body from head to toe, from my brain all the way to my feet, would get better. So we thought that that would at least be what would need to be done. So, we get the results back, and when I got them back, the results showed that the celiac was positive in the 100 range, which was pretty high. So I thought, I'm going to go gluten-free. I'm going to start today. I knew it. I'm like, why am I wasting these 8 weeks? I read on Reddit forums of people saying that, what's the point? Like, I might as well just, if I know what I know. And my doctor even said some people avoid the test because they just know what they know. I could have been 8 weeks ahead of schedule and just fucking did it. Because I was feeling a little bit better in the time, I did it for those 8 weeks. And I could have done that. I could have. But I didn't. Because I just thought, I want to make sure. Because if in the end, and I did find out, that you can actually get compensated every year and have tax write-off on the gluten-free foods that you have to eat because they're more expensive to get certain gluten-free foods and stuff, that would help me. And so when I kind of thought about that situation and thought that that would help me get better and stuff, then I realized, like, yeah, I think this is going to help. I think I'm going to actually get better. Well, the thing was that I went the day after on our trip. We were going up to the American Dream Mall. It was my dad, my brother, and my 3 nephews. My brother's 2 sons, and also my sister's son. And we went up there because my brother was taking his kids to a Giants game the next day. And we're Giants fans, of course, so he was going to take them up there to a game the next day to watch a game and whatever for fun, and thought they can go to the park and go to see, the different stores and play mini golf, and then we'll get some food and whatever. So we stayed for the whole day almost and made a trip out of it. Well, the thing was, I was kind of torn because the day before I went super gluten-free, perfectly, I would say, avoiding it for that day. And the next day, I remember saying to myself, well, wait, I should probably wait until my doctor says otherwise. I should probably still eat the gluten because we don't know yet, and I don't know what that result means, and it could be high, but maybe that's not. Maybe it's something else because you have to go by both results. It could be a false positive. Who knows? Because then maybe even though that I should say now that eating the gluten is not necessary, but at the time I'm thinking, well, maybe it's not that big of a deal, So I'll eat a pretzel from Wetzel Pretzel because I really, 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 really wanted one the last time I went to that mall, which was actually the day that we ended up going after a Giants game that was in the afternoon, and we went there to hang out for a bit. And then I wanted to get one, and I obviously didn't get a chance to get one. And, get a chance to do that. And so the thing was that I ate one. And wouldn't you know it, about a half an hour later, I had the worst pain. More painful than epididymitis. Worse than having COVID. Trust me. And that lasted for 2 weeks. It felt like the Hulk grabbed my intestines, squeezed it, and tied it into a pretzel knot. I figured out what it means when people on the Reddit group for celiac said the exact statement of what it feels like to get glutenated. They said, no, eating the constant gluten a little bit every day is going to cause you problems. But it's not going to give you a glutination event. Or if you're not eating the gluten because you need to be gluten-free, and then bam, you all of a sudden consume a piece of gluten. That is when it wrecks your gut, and it feels like the worst pain. Mind you, I'm a wrestling fan, and lucky me, an actual local promotion, GCW, that I used to go to quite a few times, and still sometimes go to with my friend Brandon, who goes to events, found out that there was one of their events going on in one of the atriums on the other side of the mall. So I actually said, as I was walking around the mall, wait, there's a wrestling event going on. I said, that's GCW. I said, wait, this is their Wrestle Dream. This is like their version of like Wrestle Dream, but it's in their American Dream event, that they're doing. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Holy shit, I'll just watch this. Now, of course, if you would have paid, you could have gotten a seat to sit in, and I still could have paid even though the event was going on. But I'm like, wait, but there's so many people watching that didn't pay because that's just to get a seat to sit, just to sit in a seat. But the mall is still open, the people are still moving around, and the stuff is still... So, of course, I'm thinking I'll just stand. And mind you, this railing I was standing at, right there was a seat, and I felt like, damn, I wish I could just grab one, because I am just in the most excruciating pain, and felt sitting down was going to feel much better. I was so small, so weak, and felt so sick. and just didn't know how in the hell I was going to be able to do anything. I just felt like, how am I going to be able to do this? How am I going to be able to survive? And I don't know how. But I made it through that day. And after that was the moment I realized I never want to feel that feeling again. And I think that was meant to happen that way, because after that, I never had that happen again. Because I made sure to be extra careful, to never glutenate myself again. And I said, I'm going to go gluten-free. So I kind of started to go gluten-free. Kind of started to feel better. And then eventually when I did, it got to a point where I realized after that you know, I just, knew that, like, it's deeper than this, that, there's got to be more. Because the gluten-free eventually kind of got stagnant, where it was, like, helping. And mind you, at first, I wasn't, like, a whole gluten-free person. I was, like, still eating things that were mimicking foods I used to eat, to try to help me wean off of those. And yes, they may have had preservatives. They may have had all these other types of ingredients in it, to try to mimic bread and mimic egg wraps and mimic this and that, and had all these weird textures and things, trying to, be experimental and mix stuff together and all of that, or whatever. And kind of, cause this problem of, me just getting in this situation and feeling like, that I was just trying to fill a void of stuff I used to eat, before. But then the situation was where I realized at the time, okay, that for me personally, that I'm going to have to get further tested for stuff, because there's got to be other stuff going on. And well, what did I eventually find out? That there was other stuff. And what it was called is SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I did a test for it, okay? Had to drink pure lactulose, based on what my GI told me. You drink that, then after you drink that, you basically go for 3 hours in 15-minute intervals. And you basically go in at that moment and basically just breathe into a tube, and then this lady pops the tube into like a machine thing that like captures the hydrogen level in your system, or methane, depending on what type of SIBO test you're doing. And then basically once you're done with that, and they test the levels that need to be tested, they get like an average from all of those levels, and then that lets you know if you have an overgrowth in your system. Well, once we found out, despite that I followed the diet, which was literally just chicken, plain, salt and pepper only, white rice, eggs, and I think like one other thing that was acceptable on there, that by doing that, you were eating foods that just did not disrupt anything in your gut. And that would just ensure that it wouldn't affect your results in any certain way, or ferment in your gut or something, like some of the foods that you would normally eat that would ferment and cause problems. So the result was off by 1 point, but I thought, well, I don't think I have it, but in case I do. My doctor said, well, why don't you try to go low FODMAP now? Try that for a bit, and then report back to me, and we'll do a virtual by March. And by then, we'll be able to know if low FODMAP is in fact the answer. That you're not only gluten-free now, but now you're avoiding certain food groups that are low in FODMAPs, and go that route. And so I did. I went low FODMAP, and I started to feel even a little bit better, actually, by avoiding some of those things. And I was, at times experimenting, where I remember making a whole salad, spending an hour trying to cook salad, and used even an ionizer device I bought that specifically would get rid of plant toxins from plants and vegetables, and actually super clean them, super wash them off. And I would do that and have a salmon salad with tomatoes and onions and either a form of spinach or lettuce, have some fresh raw cheddar on there, or Parmigiano Reggiano, olive oil spread on top, some, crushed reds, whatever. Like, I would make a fresh salad. All that stuff I would go through. And then I did that. And then eventually, once I did, I was like in the bathroom about a half an hour to an hour later, feeling like utter shit after eating that salad. All undigested stuff that just came out green, and I was feeling so sick afterwards. I'm like, what the fuck? So I thought, okay, well, obviously, low FODMAP would help, because then if I avoid the foods that are really listed as high FODMAPs, I won't maybe have that problem. But then even then, I still had crashes in the afternoon. I still felt tired. I still didn't feel like everything was really working. So then on my own merit, as we got close to like the time of the appointment, I kind of started to go keto and try to go low carb, and also try to cut out sugar as much as I could. Now, of course, I already, that previous summer, had my last soda ever, and now only drink pure water. But it did get to a point where I realized that I was going to try to cut out sugar in all forms and eat very, very low sugary things, and maybe some fibrous things a little bit, but mostly a lot of low sugary things. So when I kind of went that route, and instead of like where I at first was actually eating cauliflower rice, I tried to do that, but then I actually went a little bit back to white rice, because I said I'd rather that, knowing that that's not going to cause as many issues as the cauliflower rice. But I'm also going to try to eat a lot more meats incorporated with a lot of the vegetable stuff I was eating, and also more lamb and other types of fattier meats, and kind of start to add them back, since I ate basically no beef very rarely. But for the longest time, for years, since I was a flexitarian, I avoided eating most all red meat. Didn't go to Outback, didn't go to steakhouses, didn't go here, didn't go there. It was like, oh, well, this is this. I was just caught up in all the stuff that was being shown to me, and brainwashing me to thinking that that was the way to go. So I get to the appointment with my GI, kind of explained to her that I kind of started to go lowish keto, kind of going that route, and I started to kind of feel some noticeable differences. And she said, yeah, just keep track of what you're doing. And she's like, but what do you really want to do? Like, what's the next step here? And I said, I want to go to a dietitian, because I feel that's the last step. What are they going to be able to say that I should specifically eat? And of course, we scheduled the appointment, and I got one within a week or two. Easy. Bam. Got an appointment. I said, yes, I got an appointment, right? Well, then what fucking happens? I go about the day before the appointment. I'm on the nature trail by my dad's house. Walking, I'm like 15 minutes from home. I get a call from this lady. Well, hey, sir, we just want to inform you and tell you, well, celiac is not covered under your insurance. And because it's not covered under your insurance, here's the problem. You aren't going to be able to go unless you spend $300 out of pocket. And I said, there is no way in hell that I'm spending $300 right now on the fly for a doctor that quote-unquote thinks they know about health and nutrition, that's going to literally have me do the same thing I did for the last 8 months, which is to try every damn food possible and see what it does to me and figure out if it's safe to eat or not. Well, instead of me going and eating a food for 3 days straight, finding out it's going to kill me, or at least feel like it's going to kill me, and then realize I can't eat it anymore, and then do the process of elimination, I would rather, instead of try to figure out all the foods I can't eat, as my dad would say, well, what can I eat? Why don't we just eliminate all the categories of foods that I already know have given me problems? Sugar, any form, gave me problems. Any plant matter gave me problems. Certain dairy gave me problems. Fiber definitely gave me problems. Beans, legumes, nuts gave me problems. Fruits, I don't really ever eat fruits. I never did, but I knew that most of it at that point was also purely sugar. I'll cut out fruits. The only thing that I could think of, and this is where the green light started to turn on and I started to figure out what I needed to do, that didn't cause me any problems, was meat. That's the only thing that I could think of. I said, let me try an experiment. At one point, I was basically vegetarian, then flexitarian, but vegetarian at one point. Let's try to go the complete opposite direction of that. And I'm going to go for like a week, maybe. I'm going to get some eggs from the New York Natural. I'm going to grab some of this really good fresh meat, this turkey leg that's real good, or actually a turkey wing. I made one. It was that big. And it was like that was going to be my whole meal because I wasn't going to be eating any other type of foods or things with that. I said, I'm going to try to get that. I'm going to still include certain forms of dairy that are at least raw organic dairy, but not milk or anything, but mostly A2, mostly dairy that was hard, not too soft, you know. And that I was going to do that. And, you know, I was going to just go and include only a couple seasonings, like whatever I think would be acceptable on, in this case, an all-meat based diet at this point, and just only eat the few seasonings that would be acceptable for me to have. So I said what I'm going to do is like pepper, salt, rosemary, thyme, garlic, turmeric. That's it. Like, if that's all the seasonings that I can have, that's all I'm going to have at this point. And so what happened was I ended up going and deciding to do it. And for the first day, I remember, other than I think the eggs or whatever it was I ate in the morning, at night, I made this giant turkey leg in the oven. Or wing, sorry, turkey wing. That was like that big. I took a whole bunch of Kerrygold butter, put a bunch of seasonings into a thing, basically went the night before, rubbed it all over the damn thing and let it thaw out in the refrigerator overnight so that all those juices and all that butter and all those seasonings would seep in to the edges of that. Pop it straight in the oven, low and slow, for like however many hours, I forget. And it came out the most tender, crunchy crust. I mean, it was so juicy on the inside. I just ate it like a caveman. I just picked at it with my hands like that and just ate it. And I felt great afterwards. I felt full. I felt satiated. I felt like I was going somewhere. Did that for quite a while. Then there was a gap where I kind of went back and added some things back and kind of did whatever, you know, and kind of fell off and went back to, you know, eating some pizzas and eating some other things and whatever. But for the time of that experiment, which is why I went back on purpose, to say, wait, but now I got to go back just to make sure that then it's that this or that is whatever. And then when, you know, that happened, I realized I think I'm going to go carnivore. I think I'm going to do it. I did all the research. I went the countless hours that I couldn't sleep because of the anxiety and everything else, and depression and all these symptoms, that I went for as long as I did, and getting to a point of realizing what I needed to do for me to get, you know, better, that I got to the point of saying, this is what I need to do. I need to go carnivore, or else I'm not going to be better. That I'm not going to feel better. That this is my only option at this point, that I have to go carnivore, or do this or do that, or I am just not going to be better. And well, that's what happened. I started to go carnivore, and within about a month, I noticed at least and I have a list that I'll read here at some point. There is about 60. The list has grown now, but about 60 things that changed for the betterment of my health. And I joined some carnivore groups that I found on Facebook, became friends with the people that ran the page and a lot of other members. Talked to a lot of people, did a lot of research, listened to a lot of carnivore influence or slash mostly just like carnivore doctors, actual, yeah, there's some influencers out there like there is for any kind of thing. But mostly I wanted to go by the actual doctors like Dr. Sean Baker, Dr. Ken Berry, other doctors that, Dr. Sean Baker's like the author of carnivore. I mean, I've been doing it, in this case, for about 5.5 months now, and I've never felt better. Yeah, right now, I have just minor stuff in my nose and other stuff from the weather changing, and minor cough stuff that you can get from just dry air and dry insides and other things. But has anything I've had been completely minimized because I'm just eating meat, just eating seafood, eating organ meats, plenty of salt, plenty of fresh filtered or spring water. All of that has made everything better for me. Almost every metabolic function you could think about that has gotten better, those things have all gotten better. No matter what, all of that stuff has improved and gotten better 1,000%. And I actually have celebrated going a whole year without being sick once just a week ago. Was about a whole year without having to take any of the 8 or 9 listed medications on my medical chart that I recently over the summer got taken off, saying I don't need to take these medications anymore because I haven't gotten sick once, or gotten sick with this, or gotten sick with that I just have not needed to do that. And so that's where I was able to just realize that I'm just doing so much better as a carnivore. All these health issues that I've had for 30 years of eating all of the standard American diet food, going through all of these things that I dealt with since the pandemic and getting sick and figuring out this, figuring out all these ups and downs that I dealt with. And it was as easy as just eating steak. And I sat one day and I almost cried because I thought, I can't believe it. I think I may have actually found the answer. The reason I'm making this video, the reason I wanted to explain that whole story, was to say that if you're struggling, or if any of that in that story, any of those things related to you at all, just know that you can always go carnivore. Low carb even, keto. And those things are the tools. Now, maybe you might introduce something back if you feel like you can handle it. But in most cases at a start, you're either going to do that, and if depending on the severity of what conditions you have, you're going to, go the other way, because like I said, eventually after 8 weeks of going, and eating gluten and finding the number high, I went 8 weeks the other way without the gluten and the number was low. So we knew that that was kind of the direction. We know that low FODMAP is a form of gluten-free, but that's also low FODMAP. Then we know when you go to keto that you're doing low FODMAP and keto, so only the vegetables, fruits, grains, legumes, anything in those categories that you are able to eat, and then eliminate the ones that are high carb, which is mostly the ones that just have water are safest to eat, such as watercress, such as lettuce, cabbage, rhubarb, bok choy, stuff like that, that's mostly water. Eat certain fruits, again, only the specific ones that are very low carbish foods and things like that that won't cause you digestive issues. And go through that. So when I was able to figure that out, that is what I needed to do in order to get better, I just was like, wow, like, I think I figured out, I think this is what I need to do, and I think this is going to allow me to get better and not be as sick. Because I went so long avoiding sickness from just eating meat. And that's all I do almost every day, is just eat a ton of meat. Obviously, you want to be fat adapted, so you do want to eat a lot of fat, whether that's rendered fat, whether that's, the saturated parts of fat, whether that's extra butter, whether that's tallow. Always add those extra fats and things to meat you're eating so that you're not just eating protein, because you don't want to have too much of that. But if you're eating plenty of good fats, you're eating plenty of omega-3s with seafood, you're eating the liver twice a week that you need to eat, doing all those other things, you will be really good and feel better. So what I wanted to do now, at that point, if that's not going to be enough to prove to you on how well the carnivore diet works and how much it can help you change your life, whether you got diabetes, whether you got kidney problems, liver problems, heart problems, doesn't matter what you have. I'm going to sit now and I'm going to go on my phone, because I want to actually be able to read you this actual list I have on my notes, and hopefully I'm going to go here under my notes, and this is kind of the last thing I want to do on this video, since I know it's been long, and I appreciate anyone that has gotten to the end of this. There's 121 things, and I'm just going to quickly read through this list. If this is not enough to convince you that carnivore is the way, fine. I've noticed better energy, better sleep, waking up better, falling asleep faster, improved insomnia, waking up to pee in the night, not happening. Minimal digestive issues, such as bloating, puffed stomach, unless you eat too much saturated fat, it can kind of cause, you to have those problems. Less gas, but again, even now, I may have some, but again, I had a meal that was high in fat, so that can happen. Fewer sneezes, but again, I'm a sun sneezer, so really it's like I don't have a cold, so I'm not sneezing a lot from colds. If I change abruptly from a light area to a dark area, I can still have some sneezing. Less overall joint inflammation, joints don't feel pain. Smoother skin for the most part, or at least improved skin. Better skin pigmentation, less itching, improved eyesight, less twitching or spasming, improved hearing, less earwax, better sense of smell, faster recovery from workouts, injuries, no afternoon crashes, able to eat more and feel full longer, no cravings for junk. Change taste buds, so your taste buds get more enhanced. You could actually taste toxins if you were to eat them. So it's like your brain knows. No bleeding gums as much. Clearer mind, less brain fog, less stress. Fewer ADHD symptoms, example, forgetting things. No heart palpitations, which I had bad at one point when I was eating micro salt, which is like a finer salt that you eat. React better to cold or hot. Can take cold showers now, freezing cold showers, and it feels great. More organized, happier about life in general, not stressed about what to eat. Made routines easier and more accessible. More muscle definition, lean mass. Can do an activity such as playing drums without getting as tired as quickly. Expanded or open mind. So I've had much more of an open mind. Improved time management. More sex drive, higher testosterone, and / growth in certain areas. Smoother heels. No headaches or migraines. Fewer hiccups. Sweat less. Already never sweated much anyway. Smell cleaner, longer, less dirty between showers. Quicker reaction time in certain situations, less tired after workout, less back pain and stiffness. If sitting or stuck for a long time, less frozen feeling in leg or feet. Improved sense of touch, overall body sensitivity. Not as sensitive to certain textures or things on skin. Less pain after long sun exposure. Creative juices are back in full swing. Most likely improved liver, kidney function, more visible veins, improved circulation. Less low blood pressure due to higher salt count. Able to be more present, not as spaced out, less sensitive to lights or screens, fewer pimples or breakouts, even though there's still some if you're detoxing. Less toxicity in the body, able to remove toxins easily. More aware of my surroundings, one with self, more in tune with higher frequency. Less lymphatic inflammation, less random ringing in ears. Improved hearing, less earwax, more productive / hardworking. Be able to be more flexible if things don't go my way. Improved vision. As I said, less back pain, stiffness from sitting a long time. Longer, silkier, fuller hair. Psoriasis completely gone, along with dandruff. Healthier nails, example brighter pink, and they also grow faster. Zero green mucus from nose, or I wouldn't say zero, like from a cold, yes, but maybe less mucus. Only a little white fluid during cold mornings. No coughing. Improved immune system, example, less susceptible to catching viruses, asthma symptoms completely gone, improved breathing and overall lung function improvement. Fewer wrinkles on skin, example, backwards aging. Improved blood flow. Better balance or body composition, less stiffness, improved circadian rhythm. Improved celiac symptoms in the normal range now, since I was recently tested. Better digestion and absorption of food, zero bloat or distended stomach. Weight stabilized to a healthy range, loss of water weight. Stable blood levels, improved vitamin retention, less oxidative stress, less prone to kidney stones. Improved liver function, less toxic buildup in system. Less jaw cracking, stable electrolyte levels, hydration levels, less dry mouth unless they eat too much salt. Zero mouth sores, less burning of mouth lips. Whiter smile, improved heart rhythm. Itchy eyes or crusty eyes in the morning, very minimal. Longer, healthier brows or lashes. Zero stomach / muscle pains. Depression / anxiety gone. Faster healing wounds. Improved memory. Improved critical thinking skills. Fewer headaches or head pain migraines. Stiff neck gone. Straighter spine. Lifted glutes, less sensitive when sitting for an extended period of time. Improved flexibility or mobility. Can lift heavier weights easier. Increase white and red blood cell count to more stable levels. Better attention of knowledge or large chunks of information. Less belly button junk. Less dry lips. Less bone cracking. Faster finger and toe speed. Natural bug repeller. Thicker body hair growth, including beard. Improved voice function, vocal cords. Added height, retention of current height. Growth of male body parts, as I mentioned before. Zero pain when peeing. Less pain in bladder when needing to pee. Almost certain my cancer risk or heart attack risk is in the 10-year range is at zero. Minimal hiccups. Balanced omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. Improved moles. Better elasticity. Better time perception. And burning ketones for fuel, not sugar. The key thing about carnivore is that you will burn ketones for fuel, meaning your body will completely change from glucose to ketones. What your body needs is cholesterol, salt, and ketones. If you have those three things, high cholesterol, a high amount of salt, and good amount of ketones being burned, you are going to feel better. I, went to a naturopath after I couldn't go to a dietitian because I didn't know where to go, and a dietitian basically wouldn't have helped me. The naturopath kind of wanted me to take every supplement under the sun for all the things I'm low in, rather than just saying carnivore is the answer, and then I get all the bioavailable nutrients as I need out of meat, and then I'm going to be able to get all of the essential amino acids and fatty acids and fats that I need, and all the other nutrients out of meat without needing anything else. And if I would have been told that that was possible, I would have known that. But I had to discover that by just sticking to it. Yes, there were times I went line diet where I cut out all the dairy, all the eggs, and even the pork. Then I kind of added back pork rinds like every rarely on a certain special occasion or at a football game or a certain event, or if I need to eat some to, take some medicine because it's late at night. And like the other night I was at a wedding and I forgot to bring my medicine with me, so I said, fuck it, I'll just get a snack when I'm home real quick and take that. And take the magnesium. As long as you get good magnesium, good potassium, and either through like a good salt, which I say is a good, like Jacobson's sea salt or a salt that's least in heavy metals, is great. Then if you can get really good pure electrolyte in your water if you need it, or unless you're taking a lot of good salt like that and adding it to your food, then that helps as well. And if you kind of go through and do those things, you're going to feel good. You're going to feel great, and you're going to get better. And so I just realized, that this diet was not just a diet, but a lifestyle. If I was ever going to cheat or fuck up, it was going to be something within the diet. So yeah, did I eat a little bit of cheese the other day and had some of that hard dairy? That can cause a little bit of my psoriasis on my scalp to flare up, as I mentioned in this list. That went away. No more dandruff, psoriasis. Yes, is henna hair dye that I dye my hair with now helping with that a lot? Yes. But it's not so much about the henna hair dye as it is just that the diet itself is eliminating plant toxins such as oxalates and phthalates. It's eliminating lectins, which tear holes in your gut lining that come from many, many grains and legumes and things like that. Oxalates obviously are the worst and can cause oxidative stress for years. I'm avoiding all seed oils. Even low carb or even really seem to be healthy oils, such as avocado or algae oil or olive oil. That, none of those oils. No grapeseed oil. No, peanut oil. No sunflower, no safflower, no canola oil, no rice bran oil, soybean oil, none of those oils that don't cook under a good amount of heat. They can't handle oxidation. They're cheap, but you get them up to a certain temperature and they oxidize and they cause a linoleic acid, a PUFA, stuff that is dangerous and bad for your system, that when built up and heated up more and more, those PFAs happen. But that doesn't happen with bacon grease or with bacon fat such as lard. It doesn't happen with duck fat. It doesn't happen with suet. It doesn't happen with butter, and it definitely doesn't happen with beef tallow. They can handle high smoke points. That's why that the only parts that'll burn is the crispy parts of the tallow, but the rest of it that turns into liquid, it stays liquid, and it just heats up, and you can heat your food in it and cook in it so that you get the extra amount of fat. And I always make sure every meal I have plenty of that excess tallow, and it helps a lot with everything. So I realized that by doing that and making sure you're about 70-30 or at least 60-40 on the fat to protein ratio, it is going to help you a lot. So, all I know is 2 meals a day. Fasting is great, and please incorporate that when you can, unless, like in my case, if I have a magnesium that I obviously would have to take at night, there'll be times where I'll fast in the morning and not eat till later in the day and have a bigger meal, because at least I know at some point I have to eat when the time is around, that I take the magnesium just to ensure there's no digestive issues with your stomach when on the magnesium. But other than that, and as long as I make sure that I'm doing, the things that I need to do to stay well and stay healthy, that's all I can do. But the fact that I've gotten it to where my leg pain has basically gone down, other than I still wear the thing on my leg, just like when I want to go to the gym and work out, just for those reasons, not to ever possibly re-injure anything, or just especially since I'm lifting now quite a lot amount of weight on my legs and arms. I do that just, because it helps give you extra support, extra pressure, and it actually helps your muscles build more. As I said, I was going to mention more stuff about the gym, and yes, what I'll mention about the gym more is that you wait 3 minutes between every set of reps. Do like 5 reps, rest. 10 seconds, 5 reps, rest. Do it 3 times, and then wait 3 minutes in between the next set of reps. Do that 3 times, you're going to build much more muscle. If you look on my page, you will see, if you have me on Facebook, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you won't see this. But what you'll see, and what you'll notice, is that my muscle definition has greatly changed. Greatly, greatly changed. And that my muscles are bigger and retained more, and that I just feel better and just look more fit and more in shape than I ever have. And it's not all just because of the carnivore diet. It's because I stayed vigilant in realizing that I can better myself, that no doctor is going to fix me, that I'm not going to be stuck in this pharmaceutical system that just wants to drug you and give you drugs, and then have to be on statins to lower cholesterol, and then have to do this to do that, and then have to take this medicine for this, and then do this, and then be sick all the time. That if all I knew was changing my diet would save my life, it's almost like if those issues didn't happen, I wouldn't be right now, after almost 2 hours and 24 minutes talking to you about this subject, about the seriousness of your diet and how we have been duped and fooled, and that everything your doctor says is mostly a lie. Because they probably know, if they're carnivores, if they're doing whatever, if they're healthy doctors, they can't really agree with you on stuff too much unless they don't care about losing their job. But now my GI doctor doesn't care about the carnivore. She kind of is going to just say, yeah, like whatever you're doing. But she's not going to say yes. She's just going to like make it seem like more of like, hey, I'm glad you're doing that, but I'm not going to whatever because I really don't want to lose my job, but I really want my patients to focus on their health in terms of what they eat and their diet, because guess what? She's a GI doctor. That's all she cares about is the stuff that goes in your system. That there can be other problems beyond the stuff that goes in your system that you could be having, but that the food you eat metabolizes in your gut. If you lose your gut, you lose all your nutrients. And if you lose all your nutrients, all these 121 things I listed don't happen. The opposite of all those things happen. Your eyesight gets worse. Your ears get worse. Your body pain gets worse. Your inflammation gets worse. Your throat gets worse. Your breathing gets worse. I didn't even probably mention the breathing in there improved. I mean, everything goes down. And goes down and goes down and continues until one day you're too sick to recover. Not that you couldn't be. I've heard people that have had stage 4 cancer. Carnivore, less than a month, tumor's gone. You know what cancer tumors are? Parasite sacs. That's what they are. When you have too many toxins built up in you, and too many over a long period of time, that's when the cancer happens. And you live long enough for the cancer to happen, but yet we're supposed to be a species. We're supposed to be people that are supposed to live to be a very, very long time beyond than what we're told. Once I did all the research and found out what really is supposed to happen and that I'm supposed to be enjoying life, not fighting every day to stay alive, so that I actually have the energy to do the things I want to do with music and games and enjoy life and work out at the gym when I want to go and do all these great things for myself. And when I realized that, like, I want to be able to do those things, that's where I knew, you know, at that moment that, like, wow, like, I can do this. So, all I know is that you can, no matter your circumstances, no matter what health issues you have, you, watching this and watching this, hopefully till the end, learning anything about this stuff, you can change for the better. You can become a better person. You can change your diet, your habits, and your lifestyle. Carnivore is a lifestyle, so we don't just care about food. We care about the type of clothing that you wear, the type of things that you wash with, what you would put on your mouth to brush your teeth with, you know, what you wash your hair with, what kind of shoes you wear, what kind of socks you wear. We care about grounding and going in the ground with your feet and walking in nature and reducing screen time and, you know, doing so many things that go beyond just food and taking care of your health and getting a good adequate amount of sleep every night. All those things, all those lifestyle things, trying to avoid as many possible environmental toxins. You can't avoid them all. It's just the way the world is. You know, things are definitely getting better and more improved in that route, but just it's what it is. But all those things combined can help you get better. Not have to rely on those medications that are plaguing you. Not have to get that surgery that you don't want to have to get. Not having to be the weight that you're at and actually, you know, become the person you want to become and be who you're supposed to be. Every human's body is wired the same. It knows exactly how to heal itself, how to heal conditions. You just have to give it the proper environment. So if any of this gave you any insight on what I dealt with or anything that I went through and how much better I have been in these 5 months, or 5.5 months just about, then start today. Now I'm going to tell you I had to wean into it, or else I would have gotten a keto flu. You can look it up, pretty bad. But if you wean into it and you ease your way and slowly eliminate more and more until you get to that point, you will start within a month to notice a lot of these things I've written on this chart and you'll start to take your life back. So if you want to do that, if you want to end up like me, being well, being healthy, and being able to do what I love and enjoy, then forget about your doctor. Forget about the medications. Forget about the surgeries and all the stuff you've been taught for all these years. Throw that all out the window and just try. Maybe a week of carnivore. Or, low carb or whatever first, and then try it. And see what happens. So, that's my story. That's what I dealt with. And that's why today, I'm here sitting in this chair, able to tell you this. I appreciate you for anyone that ended up getting to the end of this. I may eventually make more videos on certain topics at some point, or even go over some recipes I've made, or talk about some other situations involving the diet that I dealt with or didn't deal with. But that is my story. That is what I've dealt with. And if any of you can relate to this, leave a like, leave a follow, write down in the comments what you think. And, let's see what your stories are. I want to hear about what you've gone through. And if you have tried to go this route and go carnivore, or maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't tried it yet. Maybe you don't know exactly where to start or what to do. If you want any help, any advice, any information, just know you can always come to me, as I have been more informed and know more about this diet than any other diet now, because I spent as many hours as I could looking up every single thing I needed to know. From the things I've learned from people in the groups I'm in, from the research data that I've read, from all the articles I've read, from the actual legit studies I've read about how, carnivore helps and does the opposite of what everyone thinks it does. And then it's going to cause you a heart problem with having too much red meat, and it's going to cause you this and all that bogus stuff. And just like I said, no, I'm going to just keep going. And for me, I don't think I'm ever going to go back. I don't think I'm ever going to try or add in. I mean, there might be a minor exception that if I ended up in Italy someday and apparently finding out that their pasta is different there, that I ate it, maybe. But even then, maybe I would say, nah, I'm just going to stick to the meat and the cheese and the stuff like that and whatever. But I think I just know that if I was able to get to where I'm at now by myself, with only a little bit of help from the doctors that, at Hopkins that helped me, just kind of, get the testing done and the stuff I needed to get in the right direction, then you, I think, can do the same thing for yourself. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I hope you guys, the ones that did get to the end of this video and watch this, whether in sections or all the way through, I appreciate you for doing that. And if you did, I want to say that I love you and that you are strong, you are powerful, and that you can get through this. And, or if you're someone that is healthy and you are pretty well and you're doing okay, and there's, this is just something you want to just look out for in case something ever happened. I would hope not. Or that, a situation arose where you needed to use any of this information. I'm hoping it also might help you down the road. Whatever your situation is, whatever it is that you got going on, as long as you're able to take something out of this and take out of it that, life is short and that you can make choices today that are better for you tomorrow, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, or psychologically, that you can make choices and do things that are better for you, then do them. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to fuck up. You're going to make mistakes. Some people might hold those mistakes against you for life, but as long as you keep going forward and doing what you need to do as a person to be the best version of yourself that you possibly can be, that's what's going to matter. Whether that's for you, your family, if you have kids, for your kids, for any other family members that you take care of, or people that you care about in your life, do what you have to do. Be authentically you. Don't go by what anyone else does, unless you're doing it because you know it's something that really works, like in this case, like carnivore or whatever. And just do what works for you. And if you do that and do that hard work and really get to that point of knowing what it is that you need to do for yourself, then you'll start to feel a lot better. So, I hope you guys have a great and fantastic day with whatever it is you're doing. I appreciate those, again, for getting to the end of this conversation. And I will see you on the next one.